Fire. The very mention of fire provokes strong emotions in most people, both good and bad. The potential for disastrous fires is always present in our work environment. On any given day, line service specialists across the world dispense hundreds of thousands of gallons of highly volatile aviation fuel into waiting aircraft, yet remarkably, fires seldom occur. The reason for this lies in the stringent safety precautions and training that every line service professional must observe. This module of the Professional Line Service Training Program deals exclusively with the subject of fire and fulfills the fire safety training required by Title 14 of the Code of Federal Regulations, commonly referred to as CFR, Part 139, Section 321. During this training, you will be introduced to regulatory and training requirements for personnel handling fuel products. Learn to identify properties of aviation fuel that contribute to a fire hazard. Examine the fire tetrahedron to understand why fires occur and how they behave under different conditions. Learn the appropriate types of extinguishing agents and equipment for fighting different classes of fires. Gain valuable perspective on your role in fighting fires, and examine the steps you can take to prevent fires from occurring. The training in this module is designed to enable fuel service providers, airports, and air carrier fueling operations at certificated airports to meet the requirements of Title 14 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Part 139, Section 321. Adoption of these guidelines for non-certificated airport operators will significantly increase fuel handling safety and should be implemented as a best practice. Let's begin with an introduction to fire safety. After completing this introductory topic, you will be able to identify characteristics of aviation fuel that contribute to a fire hazard. Your airport has established fire safety standards and procedures for equipment and installations. These standards apply to the protection of people, aircraft, and other property during refueling operations and other airport activities. In addition, airports that hold a Part 139 certificate or Airport Operating Certificate must comply with the requirements of 14 CFR Part 139, Section 321, and are required to establish and maintain standards to protect against fire and explosion in storing, dispensing, and handling fuel. This includes airports that serve scheduled and non-scheduled air carrier operations with more than 30 passenger seats, airports that serve scheduled air carrier operations with more than 9 but less than 31 passenger seats, and any airport that the Federal Aviation Administration requires an Airport Operating Certificate or 139 certificate. Each fueling company on the airport must have at least one supervisor trained through an approved aviation fuel training course in fire safety like this one that is authorized by the administrator every 24 consecutive calendar months. That supervisor is authorized to provide on-the-job training to all employees of the company that handle aviation fuel. This training is required to be conducted every 24 consecutive calendar months. Permanent records of such training must be maintained in the employee's personnel file. The FAA recognizes the potential hazards that accompany fueling operations and, as such, has outlined standards for fire safety facilities, procedures, and training. In particular, 14 CFR 139.321 must include bonding, public protection, control of access to storage areas, fire safety in fuel farm and storage areas, fire safety in mobile fuelers, fueling pits and fueling cabinets, fire safety training for all personnel, and a briefing of the local fire code from the public body having jurisdiction over the airport. Considering the emphasis placed on standards for fire safety facilities, procedures, and training, it is appropriate that we begin our fire safety discussion with aviation fuel and fire safety. You will primarily be dealing with two types of fuel at your airport, avgas and jet fuel. These two fuels vary considerably in composition and possess unique fire hazard properties. In order to understand these properties, we need to look at several characteristics that define the potential fire hazard. These are flash point, flammability range, auto-ignition temperature, heat of combustion, and rate of flame spread. Click on each characteristic listed on the left to see how the fuels compare. Flash point is the lowest temperature at which a liquid fuel gives off sufficient vapors to form an ignitable mixture of fuel and air. If an ignition source is present and the fuel is at or above flash point, the vapor can ignite. Avgas has a flash point of approximately minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit or minus 46 degrees Celsius. Jet A has a flash point of approximately 100 degrees Fahrenheit or 38 degrees Celsius. You must use caution and ensure that fuel vapors do not come into contact with potential sources of